Good morning and welcome to another episode of Iconic Freedom, the Formula. We are setting the standard for accountability and responsibility, doing no harm to others, accepting the responsibility of our choices. Let each care for self and all will be cared for.
A lot of people were shocked with your, endorsement of Donald Trump. I mean, you're all about women's rights issues. I mean, what was the reason for the big change?
Is Donald Trump not for women's rights issues?
I mean, I guess a lot of people were
He's
asking.
trying to make America great again. That's for women too, right?
That's true. I mean,
okay, so there you go.
I know. Does him getting convicted change the way you view him?
Not at all.
I mean, do you think it'll help his chances getting reelected or it'll hurt him?
I think it helps him more.
I think it helps him more.
Yeah, absolutely. I think people see the injustice and what happened, and they want to vote for him more than ever.
I know. I wanted to ask you. So it seems like a lot of celebrities are kind of voting for Trump now. I mean, why do you think people are kind of changing their way of
I think we just did our research and we're just we're not brainwashed anymore by the left. I can say that about myself. All these years I've been brainwashed and I'm not anymore.
So here we are again. That was a great video. I think it was dropped by TMZ. Was the little icon that was on there. I think everybody knows who Amber Rose is. If you don't, you need to look it up. What's funny is there's a photo that she was posing with Trump, and somebody had cropped it. And when the real photo came out, it showed that Melania was standing there. So I thought that was really fascinating. Okay, so why am I talking about denial and delusion? And Amber really, she says, because, I'm no longer brainwashed. I'm paying attention. And I know that we've talked about this, over the last year and a half about what reality is. And what is reality? It is the facts of an observation without any emotion. And I think it's kind of interesting to keep watching that as people's emotions continue to escalate and ratchet up. What's interesting is then they're trying to distract you from the reality. So think about what that is, that the more hysterical a person becomes, the more they're trying to distract you from what the reality is, from what the truth is, in order for them to avoid accountability and avoid responsibility. Because what happens with most people is then they start reacting or responding to all the emotion. One of the things that I've said, I've been a director in my job now for, almost 10 years. And one of the things that I've always said to my staff is we do not address emotion in conversation or in email or on a phone call with somebody, with a client. We just don't do it. And you will find yourself in a better position if you don't do it. Emotion is about the other person, has nothing to do with me, has nothing to do with you. It's them not being able to manage themselves. I don't know what crazy is going on in their head. Apparently, all of a sudden, I'm an actor in their psychodrama, but I'm not going to participate. Sorry, no thanks. Exit stage right. So my idea to talk about that on this podcast is because, and I've got several clips that I want you to hear. This is my self-interest. I want to convey this information because I think it helps people. It helped me, and so I'm hoping that it's going to help you, or maybe it's somebody that that you let them listen to this, and you let them see the video, and come to understand that there has been an enormous amount of brainwashing that politicians have done the world over towards the people, off the backs of the people. I was talking to a friend of mine this week, and one of the things that I said to her was that I'm fascinated by the idea that way back when, now my life has taken a different turn. I'm doing a very different job than probably a lot of people don't do. What's fascinating to me is it's a job that is quick in a sense. It's like I have an assignment, it's 4 weeks and I'm gone. It's 7 weeks and I'm gone. And what I think is fascinating is when I was growing up, back in the 70s and the 80s, even into the 90s a little bit. There's this thought process that, if you don't keep a stable job, then there's something unstable about you. And it's like, well, what kind of BS is that? So, people would make comments to me every once in a while, and I would say, well, I'm living my life. Some of it I'm trying to figure out, do I like doing that or I don't want to do that? I've had jobs where, I went in for 3 hours and I never went back. I've had jobs where I've been there for 7 years and truly enjoyed myself. But that's not the purpose of my life. The purpose of my life is to enjoy it. That's my standard. I want to enjoy it. I'm the one that moved myself to integrity and character by developing accountability. I'm owning my choices and the responsibility of those choices. And I'm not doing harm to other people. It's a very interesting thing that a lot of people will, like we've talked about, bandy about this kind of statement or declaration, but they really don't know what they're talking about because they can't explain it. If somebody starts saying that, well, then ask them exactly what does that mean, concrete and specifically. Because for me, back in that time period, it started to make me understand that, wow, if I do this, then this is how people are going to respond. So then what did I start doing? Start or stop. I stopped putting jobs on my application. It no longer became a thing of, oh, hey, I worked at this place and I worked at this place and I worked at this place, because then people would be like, well, you were only there for, not 3 days. I would never put that one on there. But, people would say, well, you were only there for 3 months. Yeah, and, so then in their mind, they have decided that their standard then is that they judge a person such as myself as being unstable. Okay, but I would posit that I was living my life. I happen to be a teenager, and sorry, not sorry, I knew back then if something is not right for me, I need to move on from it. Think of yourself or how many people you know that stay in something longer than they should, because they won't get out of it, or they're so afraid because they've been brainwashed to think that this is my station in life, or in order to be a stable person, to be seen a particular way, image building, and that I need to be able to do this, I need to stay in this job. That's not the reality. The reality is life is for living. Right? All life is for living, and you have to decide what that living is going to look like.
I was not against vaccines. I hadn't really thought about them. I thought they were, miracles of science. That's what I was told. I don't even know what I think of vaccines now, but I'm skeptical. But the COVID vax, all I knew, I didn't know anything about mRNA technology. Of course, I still am not an expert on that, but I know a lot about human deception because that's been my job my whole life. And also I try to pay attention to whether something is true or false. And the behavior of the people selling me that was so transparently dishonest. I didn't know that the vax wouldn't work, which it didn't, of course. I didn't know that it would cause harm, which it did. But I did know that the people selling it were liars. Like, I knew that instantly. And I know some of them, but I could just tell by their behavior they're lying. And I was like, I don't know what this is. No one in my family's getting this. We're not doing this. And I'm not doing this, period. Like, I figured that out the first day.
Yeah.
That's not true. I did not figure it out. I still haven't figured it out. But I felt it so strongly, and I just obeyed. And I think that works.
So a couple of months ago, I played a clip from Bill Maher's show. I think it was in January, one of my episodes there, about this guy that got on there and who was all, voice was shaky, and he's just like, we were all doing our best, and maybe we could have a little grace. No. So part of this denial and delusion is that the denial and the delusion comes from the fact that you have a self-interest and a motivation. You have a filter of this world, and by God, people are going to pay attention to it, or you're going to live through it no matter what, come hell or high water. Okay, that's fine for you. However, if you're trying to impose that onto other people, no bueno, right? Because if you're being accountable and you're being responsible, that means you have to let go. You have to step back and leave people to their fate. You can't sit there and decide what everybody's life should be like. It was very interesting. Earlier in the week, there was some post about Julian Assange, and some Yahoo got onto X and says, this was a thought experiment, and you people fell for it. It's like, we're supposed to be a learning, blah blah blah. I'm like, I'm sorry, who the hell asked you to provide me with a learning experience? Thank you, no thank you. I don't need your help. I don't need your assistance. I can manage my own life. But the filter that person has is that they have self-righteousness and superiority to the point where they think that by putting something out there that, they're doing for the better good. All they're doing is virtue signaling and image building. My response was, listen, I have integrity, I have character, I have responsibility, I made a choice to read it and make a comment to it. I would rather, this person called everybody stupid, and I said, I would rather be stupid than sinister. I would rather make an error than be sinister. I'd rather make a mistake than be sinister. So if you want to be sinister with your manipulation and controlling of others because you think you know better than they do, or you're trying to, catch them in a lie or do your gotcha moment, it actually says more about you trying to do that than it does about the person that fell for it. Because when you look at it, a person that might be, interchanging with an experience like that is not thinking that the other person is being disingenuous or lying. They're approaching it that you're being honest. Do I need to be skeptical of everything that everybody says? Maybe, but maybe not in some instances. So anyways, so that particular one with Tucker Carlson, I think is really amazing because he does something that we talk about very often on this podcast, and that is your own internal authority. Muy importante. So I don't know why that came out with the no bueno. But what's interesting to me is that it is so important that you are following your own internal authority. At some point, you gotta let all of the brainwashing, you gotta let all the denial and the delusion that has been created for you, that has been thrust upon you, that has been implemented toward you and passionately pushed at you, that you have to accept it. You got to push all that away, and you got to be willing to stand for yourself and say, no more, enough. And then you start pursuing your life. Then you start developing that accountability, that responsibility, and you're paying attention to that internal authority, that moment of, I don't know all the facts about this, but there's something that tells me that I don't want to do this, so don't do it. I think I've explained this before, but I've had this throughout my entire life. When I was young, people thought that, I was crazy, or, you're just being silly, or knock it off, you're just being very immature. And as I got older, I realized, no, this has always been my internal authority, and I need to follow it. And to the point where I just ignored what other people said. And every time that I transgressed my own standard by not listening to it is when I've put myself in a situation that I didn't want to put myself in, and then became the unraveling, the uncoupling from that situation because I had to walk it back. I say, don't go there. At the moment of inflection where that little dot says, this is not right, it is whispering in your ear. Don't wait for it to tap you on the shoulder. Don't wait for it to smack you across the face.
So watching your interview today, I think it actually gave me an interpretation that I never had of him before. And us not seeing him more, it actually kind of hurts people on judging him. I guess if that's what the media wants to do, then they're doing a very good job at it.
Yeah, you bet. All right.
So this was a really good interview that happened this week with Dr. Phil and President Trump. I saw this on Twitter, X, and I watched it today, as a matter of fact. And I really found it fascinating. I like the fact that there were questions being asked that were not asked before in other interviews, which I think is always important to, hear more dynamic from a particular individual. One of the things I didn't like, and if you go and listen to the entire interview, you yourself will hear it as well, is, Dr. Phil getting in there and trying to virtue signal. And I think it's kind of interesting is that when people start going down that road, they're losing perspective. They're losing reality, because now what they're doing is they're trying to force something. They're trying to force a reality. They're trying to force a story, not the story, but a story. For what reason? I don't know. I don't know what his, purpose of wanting to do that is. But the problem with it is that now you're denying a reality and you're trying to force another person into your reality. And it's virtue signaling, it's image building. And the piece that I found interesting was that Dr. Phil is not paying attention in that particular interview. He is not paying attention to the fact that there are people that have done things that must be accountable, and they must be responsible. And if the only way for them to become accountable and responsible is that they go to jail, then they go to jail. You can't sit there and keep telling people, oh, well, we need to stop all of this. It's just going to be back and forth, back and forth. Your opposition, whatever that is in life, they don't care. If they cared, they wouldn't do it to begin with. So when a person is purposefully doing something that is manipulative or controlling, that person is sinister. And to think to yourself that by the goodness and the nature of your goodness within you, you're going to heal that, is you being in denial and delusion. There we go. We're circling back to it. It's like, because you're fantasizing about something that does not exist. You're wanting to live in a world that may not exist. It's good for you to have integrity, for you to have character, but you can't force that on other people. You can't force it onto people that will not make those choices. I learned a long time ago when I did crisis intervention with the police department, there are people that must be left to their own fate, because I can only provide information, but I cannot lead them to the conclusion. They have to figure it out themselves. So when we're looking at that particular one with that young lady, what a great thing for her to observe and to pay attention. And she gave herself the gift of paying attention, of watching something and not being drawn in to all of the hype and the emotion that media and politicians will do in order to, again, distract you from the reality. I'm going to show a video at the end here that I think is kind of fascinating. If you're able to see the video here on Rumble or on YouTube, it's kind of cool because it's showing a lot of images with Donald Trump and lots of black people in the community. I mean, there's all kinds of people, and it's like decades. And the whole purpose of that particular video was to show people that, all of these people that denounce him now didn't seem to hate him back then. So what happened? It doesn't have anything to do with Donald Trump. And I want to say that even now that I am posting some things about him, none of that has anything to do with Donald Trump. It has to do with the individual that is watching it, that is listening to it. They are filtering it through whatever their filter is, however damaged they may be, however demented they may be, however diseased they may be. They are filtering it through all of that, and then they're having a reaction to it. It's always about them. It's not about Donald Trump. And that's what's so fascinating. And even he realizes it, and he will say it, that, look, this has nothing to do with me. This has to do with this country and who we are as a nation, and what do we want our society to be like? What do we want our legacy to be like? So I'm going to play that video, and then we will wrap things up.
think it's crazy I'm the one who they labeled as controversial, and Cardi B is the role model for 12-year-old girls. There's rappers pushing Xanax at the top of the billboard, but if I mention race in a song, I'm scared I'll get killed for it. It's backwards, it's getting exponentially dumb. It's more difficult to get a job than purchase a gun. Eminem used to gay bash and murder his mom, and now he doesn't want fans if they voted for Trump. We're ashamed to be American. You should probably love it, cause you have the right to say it and not get strung up in public. As children we were taught how to walk and talk, but the system wants adults to sit down and shut up. Cancel culture runs the world now, the planet went crazy. Label everything we say as homophobic or racist. If you're white, then you're privileged, guilty by association. All our childhood heroes got Me Too'd or they're rapists. They never freed the slaves. They realized that they don't need to change. They gave us tiny screens, we think we free cause we can't see the cage. They knew that race war would...
So I think it's fascinating how, the delusion and the denial that we can be in when we are brainwashed into thinking something that is not true. Now, how do you come out of that? Well, you come out of it by, first of all, you have to do your own research. You have to do your homework, as Leonard Bernstein would say. And then the other piece is that you need to develop personal responsibility and accountability. You have to develop your own integrity, and the only way you do that is you have to put forth the effort. Lots of people can put information out there, but you have to do the work, the endeavor of unmasking it, exposing it for what it is, and to realize, hey, that's not true, that's a lie. Or like I mentioned about the photo of Melania and Amber Rose and Trump, where they had cropped it because they were trying to create a story rather than the story. Yeah. Anyways, I think I got that mixed up. Anyways, so I hope you enjoyed this. I'll do some more of this next weekend. I got a couple more clips. It'll be kind of fun. That music means that our time is up today. So thank you so much for joining me. Hit that like button if you would. Share it with your family and friends. You never know who it might help. If you want to check out my book, it's at glulu.com. And if you want to subscribe to this, hit the link down below for Buzzsprout, and you can do that. Any contribution you do on a monthly basis is much appreciated. Have a great week. Let each care for self, and all will be cared for.